Good morning, everybody. It is good to be back at Salesforce. I'm wishing all of you a wonderful adventure this week. We are going to talk about the future today. Like all new technologies, 5G, which is still so early in its adoption, is indistinguishable from magic right now, to quote British science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke. The question for us today is it good magic, bad magic, something in between, none of the above? 5G promises to impact every aspect of our lives, from entertainment and media and games to manufacturing, supply chain, transportation, healthcare, education, and yes, we can expect self-driving cars and even smart livestock. But leveraging this new technology will require big changes from all of us to infrastructure. It will require businesses and governments to work together, not necessarily their power move. It will also require all of us to think about ways that we can get ahead of the possible risks to the health and well-being of people, communities, and an already imperiled planet. And in terms of a more equitable world, which I know we all care about, we should also be talking about who is poised to be left behind of that good magic that 5G can bring. And I think we're going to discover today that trust is going to be a big, key part of all of this. So I'd like to begin by welcoming three extraordinary experts to the stage. Here they come, I promise. We've got Casper Klinge.
So sit down?
Yep. Why don't we all sit, and then I'll give you a more proper introduction. So Casper Klinge, Denmark's tech ambassador, is a career ambassador who's worked in some of the world's most turbulent places, and is now, thank goodness, the world's first ambassador to Silicon Valley, acknowledging what we all know is that big tech has as much power as many governments. To his right is Mats Granrud, the CEO of GSMA, a group which represents the interests of mobile operators worldwide. That's more than 750 operators with almost 400 companies in the broader network. And I will also let you know that under Matt's leadership, the mobile industry became the first industry sector to broadly commit to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in 2016. Well done. Dr. Huang, last but not least, is the chairman and CEO of Korea Telecom, or KT Corporation, absolutely the largest integrated telecommunications and media company in Korea. He is also absolutely the father of 5G, which we're about to hear about. He's had an extraordinary career in IT. I can barely do him justice, from Stanford to Intel, a key figure who turned Samsung into a global powerhouse. He has a law, Huang's Law, which we're not going to hear about today, but has also been working tirelessly for an inclusive and sustainable future through the Commission for Digital Development of the UN and beyond, and has been a board member of GSMA. And so these two gentlemen have known each other for a while. Mats and Casper are new to each other, but immediately started bantering about the difference between Sweden and Denmark. So we're going to hear some cultural tension up here today as well. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Only friendly banter.
So I want to start with the most foundational question, and Dr. Huang, I'd like to start with you. Just a couple of minutes so we can all sort of get in. What is 5G really, and how can it impact the day-to-day lives of all of us?
Well, thank you very much for asking the first question. 5G is actually next generation network. It offers the ultra-fast speed and the ultra-low latency and super connectivity. Well, however, 5G is far beyond just a network. It is a fundamental infrastructure of fourth industrial revolution, and it is the engine of transformation throughout the industry. Well, every thought in Korea, for the first time launched in the 5G, KT actually. We now, at the end of this year, 5 million subscribers, 10% penetration of mobile connection. Well, let me explain the B2B and the B2C case. In Korea, 5G is changing our lives dramatically. For example, the first time in the world, KT rolled out exciting chat services where up to 8 people can access 3D avatar at the same time, which means everybody can enjoy the high-quality video conference call in 5G phone. Well, KT already commercialized in such as VR broadcasting and the cloud gaming and so on. Well, I wanted to focus on here today is more B2B market because this is much, much bigger than B2C. Well, I'm so busy now receiving so many calls from industries because of their digital transformations. We're going to help them. Well, KT started to develop a range of B2B use cases and the manufacturing, transportation, and healthcare, and so forth. I can give you just two examples. One is a big company, one is a small and medium company. Big company case. World's largest shipbuilding company, Hyundai Heavy Industry, they are absolute number one is transforming to in the world's first 5G shipyard powered by the KT. What is the problem is they have difficulties in real-time monitoring the huge area of shipyard. Is 70 football stadium combined is impossible to. And coordinating their entire shipbuilding process with perfect security. KT private enterprise network solve completely these problems. By analyzing and controlling the huge amount of big data gathered from the IoT sensors and cameras. So what the result? They reduce the industrial accident half and increase productivity 40%. How about the SME, small and medium enterprise, also able to benefit from the 5G? Well, that's the reason KT has to provide in the 5G-based manufacturing cloud services and then AI platform called Factory Makers for SMEs with a very inexpensive rate on pay-you-as-you-go basis.
Sure.
In conclusion, 5G is not a network, it's a platform, all industries.
Okay.
So I think I'm confident that combining 5G and AI will open the unlimited possibility and contributing prosperity of the human kind.
So in that same question here, we're on the threshold of new technology, which is really new possibility here. How do you see it playing out?
Well, I think, I have two kids and they are in the early 20s and I feel really envy for them. Because what I've done, I build the networks. I've done what Dr. Wang was referring to, building the stuff, the infrastructure. Now we have a phenomenal platform, which is called 5G, which is going to coincide with 4G for many, many more years. We forecast that by 2025, there will be roughly 1.1 billion 5G connections. Roughly 15% of the world's connections will be on 5G by 2025. 15%.
2025, okay.
Yeah. And 4G will continue to grow, so by 2025, roughly 49%, 50% of everyone will be on 4G. So they will coincide. It's not going to happen like that. It's going to take a long, long time. But I think it is two things. One is that we will, of course, have higher speeds, lower latency. So imagine you're going on the motorway and you can go much faster because you have more lanes. And then in certain parts of the motorway, you can go super fast.
Right.
And that will be when you're accessing a millimeter wave area, i.e. where you have a coverage with a millimeter wave base station. So you're going to go much faster, lower latency. That's from a technology perspective. Yes. But if you go back 15 years, 2004, when Salesforce was first publicly traded, I think.
Right.
They were 2004.
Okay.
I think very few of us had heard, if any, have heard about Spotify or Uber or Airbnb or any of those companies. Today we see them. They have been creating a new world for us. Without the mobile phone, without the ubiquitous coverage, ubiquitous technology, the same technology across the world, which is 4G, it's the first time in history, we are now able to utilize this platform, as Dr. Wang was saying, in a very intelligent way. So what will 5G give us? Well, it's going to bring us faster speed, lower latency, but it's going to bring the next generation of billion-dollar unicorn companies that we don't know today. And I think it's super exciting, and that's why I'm so envious of my children.
Okay, so let's bookmark the unicorns because we need to dig into how that's going to happen. But Casper, I saw you nodding, so clearly you're on board with all of this. What does this mean from your point of view, specifically government and society?
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm a diplomat and I studied political science, so I have no idea how I ended up on this panel. Thanks very much to Salesforce and Eric.
There's a reason.
There's a reason. And the reason is, of course, that you know, talking about 5G technology or artificial intelligence, IoT systems, is something that we can do from a technical point of view, or we can do it from a governance or regulatory point of view. And one of the reasons why Denmark decided to establish what I still think is the world's first embassy to technology, with a global mandate, by the way, is that we think that the impact coming from technology is at least at the level of the impact coming from other countries. So instead of just having bilateral ambassadors to country X, Y, Z, we now need also ambassadors to the tech industry to better understand, better comprehend what these guys are doing and what impact it's going to have on our societies. And I think I agree with the two gentlemen. I even agree with the Swede, which doesn't happen often when you're Danish.
All day they've been doing
Yeah,
this.
we'll fight it out afterwards, Mats.
No, it's fine.
I think I actually agree that the impact is going to be enormous. It's going to be revolutionary. But I think it's also fair to say that here in the beginning of the 21st century, that no technology is neutral, and therefore governments also need to pay attention to how we make sure that we have guardrails around some of these new technologies so it benefits everybody from a sustainable point of view. So that's our approach and how we're looking at it.
So we're gonna spend quite a bit of time on the sustainable part. Let's still dig in on the transition. What is it going to take to transition successfully from 4G to 5G? What is that going to look like from a business point of view?
Do you want me to start?
Sure.
Well, I from 3G to 4G, I think was quite clear. We saw the world of data. From 4G to 5G, as I said, 4G will be around for many more years. 5G will, as Dr. Wang was saying, will be able to give us more opportunities within the enterprise community. We will have IoT connections. Everything that benefits from being connected will be connected. So, Ellen, do you want to have a toaster that is not connected? Well, then in case you need to go over there, where you have the unconnected toaster, because all toasters will be connected, all vacuum cleaners will be connected. And that will be sort of catered from a 5G perspective. So 5G is for us as consumers, higher speeds and lower latency. I have a 5G phone somewhere, and I can now download in London a Netflix movie. It takes me maybe 4 seconds. You know, but that is to the extent 5G is giving me today. In the future, it's going to give me something completely different. But for industry, it's going to be a revolutionizing exercise for sure.
Doctor?
Yeah, let me tell you the differences. What in up to in the 4G, they're talking about the speed. Speed actually determined all the usage, application services, every convenience for in the customers. 5G is totally different. Not only speed, latency is very important because you can do autonomous cars, connected cars without latency, just 1 millisecond level. You cannot imagine over there. Do remote surgery, so you cannot imagine of that kind of things. So 5G is actually not only speed, but also latency, super connectivity. It's within 1 kilometer, is handling the 1 million IoT connectors simultaneously.
Internet of Things.
So 5G is totally different. That's the reason why 5G is not only in the B2C, many AR, VR, or I already talking about in the video conferencing, that kind of thing. But in social, in point of view, a lot of in the industry, huge in the digital transformation is happen. Because I already told you in one of the big companies, they reduce extent, increase productivity 40%. Can you imagine about that?
No.
This is a revolutionary change. That's 5G.
But this is what terrifies me too, and this is where you're going to earn all your trips to Mogadishu here, is that as things go faster and more things are connected, my toaster and my Netflix viewing habits and my EKG, is that what is going to happen to that data? And how is that data not going to be used against us? As a US voter, very nervous about the next election. I'm nervous about the foundational use of data and data collection that's already baked into the system. Ambassador?
Yeah.
Please save us.
Well, yeah, that's a small KPI. But I think the point here is, and we often talk about the challenges with technology, and we often talk about some of the problems that the big technology companies are, putting upon us. But I also want to make one point here is that I really think that the problem with Cambridge Analytica, leaks of personal data is that it gives new technology a bad reputation. And it actually, if you go back to Denmark or in Europe and you ask people on the streets, what's your view on technology today compared to 2 years ago? I think people will be slightly more skeptic, slightly more pessimistic about what technology is able to do.
Okay.
And the problem is here that the fantastic aspects of 5G technologies, just to take one example, will be a little bit more difficult to implement. So data-driven healthcare, autonomous vehicles that will, by the way, reduce the number of casualties on roads dramatically. It will be a little bit difficult for us to get our political decision makers to, roll out the necessary regulations to enable this new technology because of some of the scandals we're seeing. So fast forward to the conclusion, what do we need to do? Well, in my view, we need governments to step up to the plate to better understand what technology is doing. That's sort of the reason why I was appointed and why other countries are doing the same. But we certainly also need industry leaders to take what I would call societal responsibility and acknowledge that 5G is not neutral. You have to make sure that it benefits everybody. You mentioned Mogadishu before. I just want to say that I think there's a global aspect in 5G, which is also to make sure that this benefits people in rural areas, that it benefits people in Africa, Southeast Asia.
Yes.
Because otherwise this will become a foreign and security policy issues, because I think this will be the root causes of migration issues or extremism, radicalization further down the road. So I think real big issues are at stake, but we shouldn't lose sight of all the fantastic things new technologies will be able to do if the companies will play ball.
So we're throwing it to you for Mats and Dr. Wang. What are smart leaders looking for when they invest in new ideas or invest in new projects that make sure that the sustainability is built in?
Well, I think clearly having a sustainable business model in this day and age is critical for any business.
Right.
As I told you before, that from a GSMA perspective and our members, Dr. Wang and others, I don't think that we would be able to attract or retain any new talent if we don't have a clear sustainability agenda. And that is obviously to do profit. I mean, that is sort of the license to exist. But it's equally to focus on the people dimension, to make sure that there is an inclusivity in whatever we do. We pay fair wages, that we are working with equality, that we're working with inclusivity. That's the people dimension. And the planet dimension, back to the 3 Ps, that is having a revival. Obviously looking at the climate. And the GSMA and the mobile industry, we are a small part of the problem. We're not a big emitter of CO2, but we can be a big part of the solution. And we're working extensively with that. We have now more than 50 mobile operators disclosing their carbon footprint through the CDP, and we have 20-odd operators. And you should know, 20 operators in this world is huge. That is roughly 50% of all mobile subscribers on those 20. So it's massive. It's billions of people that are covered with those operators. We'll use science-based target to come to a net zero emission in line with the Paris Climate Agreement, which is net zero before 2050. So there's a huge momentum and a huge responsibility, I think, that people are feeling on how do we use technology in the right and proper way. But if I may,
yes.
I think this apprehension of new technology, I think is critical that we have a discussion. Exactly what you're doing. Despite the fact that you're Danish, you're actually doing a very good job.
You see what he's doing?
So we need to have this discussion. But I would like to refer to 2 other things, because you can answer this in 2 ways. There is this famous British author, Douglas Adams, and he once wrote that everything that exists when you are born is absolutely natural, because it has always been there, right?
Yes.
And everything that is invented up to you're 35 years old, that is pretty cool. Yeah. And that can actually revolutionize the world.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but that certainly fits right into me, mobile technology. But everything that is invented after you're 35 should be treated with suspicion, because it's most likely useless and is most likely harmful as well.
Right.
And I don't know, but I mean, it fits pretty nice into sort of what I am. Now, to that extent, I recently read an article from a Swiss scientist, and his name was Konrad Gessner. I don't know if you've heard of Konrad Gessner, but he's a very respected Swiss scientist. And he had this feeling that in this day and age, the overflow of data is actually hurting our mind and maybe even physically damaging us.
Oh,
you know, hand-to-heart is, I don't know if he's right or not. What wouldn't we take to see our kids pick up a book and read instead of a Xbox controller? But what you should know is that Mr. Gessner, he died 1565. And what he was referring to was the printing press. Oh. So, you know, this is a long, winding answer. But I think history is repeating itself. Every time we see something new around the horizon, and it's invented after we're 35, and you know, I think most of us are after 35 here, we sort of treat it with a great suspicion. We try to find problems with it. So I don't want to diminish the good work that we're trying to do when we're combating data and privacy. Right. But we should also remember that we have, as humans, we have a phenomenal way of adapting to new technology and finding solutions to it.
Okay, so I'm going to take my Luddite brain and throw it over to Dr. Huang here. Maybe you could either comment on this or just paint a picture of 5G 10, 15 years from now. And how do we make sure that we're getting past the printing press stage of anxiety?
Okay, well, in 10 years, I think we live in the era AI everywhere. I'm very convinced that bigger impact will come. 5G meet in, I think the AI, data-driven AI, is enormous, expressively to change. 5G will connect in everyone, everything on Earth, and big data from the countless mobile devices and IoT sensors will meet AI technologies. They will create the smartest in the value for humanity. And this should be served in solving social problems, such as traffic, energy, or healthcare, even air pollution, and so forth. KT already has commercialized these 4 platforms in Korea. Soon, you're going to do in global.
Okay.
So what happened? Well, what comes first when you're thinking about AI? Mm-hmm. Probably you're thinking Google Home,
yeah,
or Alexa,
right.
in the Amazon Alexa, right?
Also games.
Well, KT developed in our own AI speaker called Giga Genie. Well, this utilized this AI platform on IPTV set-top box for the first time in the world. We actually now expanding this AI platform to home, hotel, well, buildings, or vehicles, even contact centers, robots, wherever in AI may be necessary. So, well, actually, you can experience it when you have a chance to visit in Korea, visit in the KT AI hotel. So amazing.
Okay.
You surprise it. Because
Giga
Genie solves all wishes you want to talk about. Not 3, like a movie Aladdin. Aladdin movie, only they are accepted 3. Well, anyway, with the power and the 5G and AI is combined, we can actually overcome limitation, time and space. So people more enjoy the digital benefits. For example, in the Dreamforce conference, we'll be in the 5G hologram conference. You don't necessarily fly out so far, and I think you can enjoy in the home, in the 5G hologram. So remote actual surgery and autonomous in the car is sort of in the 5Gs in the future, but still in the pilot stage. So real-time video recognition based on the 5G technology will make them in reality. So now everybody is talking about in autonomous cars now. But the KT already demonstrated the 5G based in a connected car in real load. Matt, you already ride the connected cars in the Pyeongchang Olympic, right? 2 years ago. Yeah. He is the evidence. So,
and I'm still alive.
Yeah, we developed into one step further, life-saving 5G remote cockpit system. This is saving life. So we moved one step further and life-saving 5G technology. So to do so, I think the current AI requires a strong computational power. Maybe they need an expensive GPU or AI chips as well. So that's the reason why we have to go to in the 5G. 5G is cloud-based, native. And then AI work on that cloud, very low cost. So that's changing whole life and whole world. That's what I'm keeping talking about, why 5G is necessary, important.
So I know that there's a long runway here. We've got a long way to go before there's even sort of marginal adoption. So where do we need between the beautiful future that's coming if we keep our minds open and keep the government straight? What do people need to think about right now in terms of skills to learn or places to study or places to invest? Like where are the opportunities right now? Matt, I'm going to throw it to you, and I think it's also...
I think 5G is certainly interesting, but we talk more and more about something we call intelligent connectivity, which is 5G and IoT, together with AI and big data. With those four components together, you will have some awesome platform. So I think coding is certainly really interesting, looking into other types of customer interfacing solutions. But with 5G, we will have the ability in future releases to do something we call network slicing, which means that we will be able to dedicate resources to a hospital or to an enterprise. Today, it's best effort. If there are too many people using the same resource from one cell, there is a congestion. And therefore you lose connectivity. But tomorrow with network slicing, we can effectively put sort of a fiber in the air and have that resource dedicated to a certain enterprise or whatever.
Right.
And that is going to change the way that enterprises use mobile technology. And I think everything around that, edge computing, edge storage will be critical in order to get latency as low as possible. We simply don't have time to move data from the handset or the mobile device all the way back through our mobile network, which is a small part, and then transmit it to some router and a storage and then back all the way. We can only go to the edge, i.e. to the first interface to the internet. And then that's where you will have the storage, that's where you will have the computer power, and then the information will go back. That's the only way where you will get a millisecond latency, which is critical, exactly what Dr. Wang said.
We talk about, as I'm listening to you as this conversation's unfolding, what I'm really hearing for success, and we talked about this backstage, is a new form of capitalism, a capitalism that absolutely demands more of the way we think about making money, the way we think about making products, the way we think about supporting our leaders, and the way we think about interacting with our government. And it's public-private partnerships are part of this, particularly as things move quickly. What have you learned about what makes those successful, even though that many technology companies would prefer not to interact with government or regulators?
Yeah, well, I think we have two things going for us in Denmark right now. And one thing is yesterday we qualified for the European Union Championship in football, so real soccer. That was a very important day for me.
I should have mentioned that right away.
So that's why I'm looking so happy today. And the second thing we have going for us is we have a very digitalized country, probably one of the most digitalized countries in the world, which means that skills and competences is perhaps at the level where we can benefit from some of these new technologies coming our way. I think the big challenge, even for a small progressive economy like the Danish economy, is the massive investments we're looking at. I think that requires us to prioritize in a different way we've done before, and that's going to be difficult. And I think actually where 5G technology and where some of the new technologies might provide new challenges to us is that the investment represents a level where even strong economies will have difficulties, coping with it. And that, again, is why we also believe, the industry will have to take responsibility here as well. They have to make investments that will connect people also in the periphery, so it's not only an urban phenomena that will benefit, the OECD countries, to put it like that. And I think that requires quite a lot. Now, you asked a question to Mats before on where do we need to invest sort of in skills and competences. I just want to bring in being a diplomat and being quite cynical about how the world is evolving, the word cybersecurity. And I think that's quite an interesting but also very necessary aspect of 5G technology, that with all the benefits and the possibilities also comes increasing vulnerability.
Right.
And I think it's critically important that we also invest in ensuring that we are protected against malign actors that will use 5G networks to attack us. We had our sort of Pearl Harbor moment in Denmark a little more than 2 years ago, when the NotPetya virus hit us quite hard, and especially one of our biggest corporations. And I think that was a real eye-opener on what a fantastic future we're looking at, but also how critically important it is that we defend our society. Now, there's a reason why this is called critical infrastructure, because it is critical, and I think we should be happy and to some extent also celebrate that we haven't seen any casualties coming so far from cyber attacks, but I don't think it's unrealistic or science fiction that you could potentially see casualties coming from cyber attacks, and that's why we need this public-private partnership between governments and industry as well.
So I write a daily column on race and culture, and a big part of those conversations includes the business case for diversity. And in the last couple of years, I've noticed that there is more capacity and patience for the moral case for diversity. So both of those working together, and I'm hearing that here today on this panel. And I want to circle back to who gets left behind in a very direct way. I am worried about Haiti. I am worried about Libya. I am worried about places where there's conflict and places where there's extreme poverty. What is the business case and the moral case for making sure that the possibility that is described by 5G reaches these places? I know, it's like I'm asking you Nobel Prize level stuff. Mats?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily only 5G. I mean, it's
right.
Any type of connectivity. And,
correct.
And if you look at the world, we have 50% of the world's population connected to the internet, 3.5 billion people. 3.5 billion are not connected. Now, if you look at the 3.5 billion that is not connected, roughly 2.8 billion of them, 40%, they live beneath a 3G or 4G network, but they choose not to connect.
Okay.
So 10%, 800 million or so, do not live beneath a 3G or 4G coverage. So that's an infrastructure issue. But the large portion is usage. It's the so-called usage gap. So we need to do a lot more stuff in fostering usage. And why do people not choose to connect? Well, it can be affordability. It can be what we're talking about here, about the notion that everything on the internet is bad, so I don't want to. It could be skills, that I don't have the skills. But what we have found is that most common is that, I have the money, I have the skills, and I'm okay with sort of the internet things. But it's nothing there for me. There's no local content that is relevant for me. Okay. So fostering an innovative community at the edge is critical here to make sure that people drive. And from the mobile industry, we're engaged in all the 17 goals. So education, for instance, 1.4 billion people are using the mobile device in some sort of educational purpose, 140 million more in 1 year. We have 1 billion people that do not have an identity. 1 billion people, they don't exist. And we have, together with UNICEF and a whole bunch of mobile operators in only 2 countries, in Tanzania and in Pakistan, launched a simple app whereby newborn babies can easily be registered. It takes now 20 minutes, and we have managed in the last couple of years to register 4 million newborn babies that way. So there is a pretty big social conscious of exactly what you're saying, Karsten, that the massive investment means that we have a huge muscle, which means that we also need to take a big responsibility for the future of this planet. And I think that is, Dr. Wang is a clear example of that, to be honest.
Dr. Wang, did you want to weigh in?
Well, I think before coming in this stage, I just negotiated with the moderator to when you ask a socio-economic effect of 5G or 5G, how to make it inclusive to mankind, something like that.
Yeah.
I want to show some examples. Well, there is growing concern that the fourth industrial revolution turns out to be the major barrier to inequality. So our top priority should be the bridging the digital divide. Well, I think that with the 5G, we can achieve sustainable development goals in most efficient way. KT is also working in the social project called the Giga Story, is to provide the giga speed broadband services to local community in remote area.
Right.
And this is just not connectivity. It is an ICT solution for education, healthcare, disaster prevention, and safety, improving the overall quality of life. Let me tell you one very unique example. In Korea, we built in 5G village in the demilitarized zone between the south and north.
Oh.
The kids there can do various outdoor activity, but inside they stay safely with our 5G based in mixed reality solution or in services there. Now, we actually expanding this project to the world, starting from in the Giga Island project in Bangladesh in 2017, Smart Palm project for people with impairment in UAE last year, and to world first ICT rescue center located in the 3,700 height on Mountain Annapurna in Nepal this year.
Oh, wow.
Out of isolation, they are able to experience connectivity. Well, I have one more case to share, even the time is done, but one of the biggest challenges to mankind is the infectious diseases, right?
Yes.
Such as Ebola, SARS, MERS, and Zika. But they not only take away lives, but also destroyed the families and communities. So KT uses AI and big data to solve this problem. We create a smart quarantine system by utilizing mobile carrier roaming data. So it identifies travelers exposed to infection at early stage and prevent the spread of the infectious disease by alerting the potential risks in advance. We upgrade this system to global epidemic prevention platform, and several countries already adopted our platform. Hopefully soon in US, why not, right? Well, actually, with the 5G, it's much more effectively and quickly prevent the spread of global infectious disease at an early stage. Well, 5G's impact will be much greater than you expected, right? How about that?
Yeah.
Well, actually, 5G massive connectivity will ensure the distribution of benefits from the fourth industrial revolution to all industries, to all individuals, fairly and economically.
Economically.
That's what I'm saying regarding the 5G.
I appreciate that. I appreciate all three of you very much today. Casper, I'd like to give you the last word as we go into negative time here.
My God, the pressure.
I know, from a societal point of view, from a political point of view, it does seem to me that it's going to take an unprecedented amount of cooperation between nation states, between all kinds of actors. What can we do as world citizens to make the work easier, to make the work better? What do you need from us, from the world?
Well, I think, and I would probably guess that we share this view that the gap between what governments understand, the policies we have, the regulation we have in place, and where technology is today, that gap is not being reduced. In fact, it's increasing a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at previous industrial revolutions, it's clear that it takes time for us to catch up with the reality of new technologies. And I think that's a commercial problem, but it's also a societal problem. So that's why we need to step up to the plate and do that. How do we do it? Well, what we're trying to do, and I just represent a very small country, but a forward-leaning, technology-optimistic country, is that we think we need to think about alliances and coalitions in a slightly different way, not only between nation states, but also, in fact, building alliances between, actors from the private sector and governments. And we need to build alliances on responsible technology. And that implies, the technology industry to assume a responsibility both for rolling out new critical infrastructure, for enforcing technology that is done in a way which is not harmful to democracy or human rights or liberal democratic institutions. And I think we're at a stage where it's really crunch time to get this right. Governments will need to do quite a lot. The private industries will have to do quite a lot. It takes two to tango, and that's sort of what we're trying to do.
Beautiful. It's a perfect place to end. Thank you so much for being here, Casper, Mats, Dr. Huang. Thank you for coming today.
Thanks a lot.
Enjoy your Salesforce adventure.